This evening. If we have not met yet, my name is Blaine Ashley, and I'm the founder of New York Champagne Week and the Fizz is Female. So the Fizz is Female, we launched in October 2018, and it celebrates female powerhouses in sparkling wine from around the world. For the last 2 months, we've been doing these weekly Wednesday, Women Crush Wednesday, Zoom happy hour events. And this evening concludes the weekly Wednesday events with Melissa Sutherland. And Melissa is a wealth of roles in the wine industry. But tonight we're speaking specifically to Bolé wine, which you are the US ambassador of. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. The last time, one of the last people I saw in New York was you, Melissa, at Trey Vicari. And that was the first time we'd met, and also the last time we saw each other. So the first and last time that we had connected, and I got to taste Bolé, and it's a really amazing, beautifully designed bottle and wine created by all women. We'll get to that in a minute, but can you tell us about your entry into the wine business in general? How'd you get into the wine industry?
For sure. Yeah. So just to make this brief, cause, you know, some of you guys know the story, but so basically my first career was in politics and policy. I was in Washington, D.C. working in the 1990s after undergrad. And I didn't necessarily grow up in a household that drank wine and talked about it, but there was wine around, there was booze around, there was plenty of booze around. And but my dad liked wine, and it was mostly French wine, mostly Bordeaux. So this would be like in the 80s. But I really didn't I really didn't drink so much, and I really didn't appreciate wine until I was in undergrad. And what I really liked about wine was that, like, I could get a bottle and I could get a book and I could see things on a map. And so that was very exciting for me as a student, and just thinking, it wasn't like I did this all the time, but it just felt like, wow, wine is more than wine. It's actually on a map, and there are people that actually make it. And this is an economy, and there are financial things. And then, whoa, hold on, like other people came to like this region and helped these people. So there was just, there were, it just seemed very multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary to me. And I felt that was cool. And I felt like, I mean, at the time, and maybe this was naive, I felt like wine can be for everyone. And so I continued working in DC, and on the weekends, or, sometimes at night, I used to go to this place on Capitol Hill, and they would have wine tastings, and I would just go. And of course, it was a whole bunch of dudes. And, you taste wines with the dudes, and they tell you things, and you're like, oh, but what are you talking about? This was also at a time like where I didn't know about Jancis Robinson. Like, so let's say this is 1994, 95, 96. I did not know of a woman in wine. And I say this now because, like, it's just, everything is just kind of almost normalized now in a way. I mean, that's a whole other topic. But we knew about Robert Parker. And we knew about Robert Parker because Robert Parker, I was in DC, he lived in Maryland, and he had like maybe, I mean, look, we weren't even in 1994, 95, 96, we weren't even, it wasn't like everybody was mailing each other this. You got a newsletter mailed to you, like if you were on like the mailing list. And so I really got into wine by reading Robert Parker, talking to these guys, and drinking Bordeaux. And so so I eventually left politics and policy in 2000 because I couldn't take it anymore, quite frankly. And I was 30 at the time, or 29. And I had moved to Houston to work on a campaign my candidate did not go on to win. And I decided to move to Houston, Texas from Washington, D.C. When I was in Houston, I knew that I wanted to do something with food and wine, but I didn't know how to do it. But I still had to do something else. So I became an elementary school teacher in Houston Independent School District. I went through one of those alternative certification programs that that school districts often provide. It's sort of a fast tracking where you take courses in the summer, and then your first year, you're still taking courses at night, but you're teaching. And so I taught at a school called Wellesley in Houston. It was an all African-American school. This is something I wanted to do. I didn't want to go into the Peace Corps. I didn't want to do any of that kind of stuff, but I wanted to, I hit a breaking point when I was 29 or 30, and I wanted to change my life. And so I did that for 4 years, and it was really wonderful. One summer, I taught photography. Another summer, I got a grant from Alice Waters to teach food and planting food, and we prepared a garden. And I really loved it. It was great. But I did also figure out what I wanted to do, and so I moved to New York in 2005 to go to graduate school to study media studies and to do media studies and design. But I also came with a job in wine. And so that was in 2005. And my whole idea was that I really liked consumers. I really liked this idea of selling wine online and what that would look like. Because I had this experience of all these like dudes, which most of them were jerks anyway. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to sell wine online and really connect with customers? And what does that, what does that mean to really create value when you're thinking about customers, So I've always had customers in mind first before companies. So I've been in wine since 2005 and in New York since then. So, and sorry, I'm still in New York. It's car alarm.
Yes. Well, I miss that sound. Who knew that would ever be something that would come out of my mouth? I do miss it. You're a New Yorker when that sounds like home.
And actually doesn't even faze me, but then I just thought, oh, this is a really great end cap to that story.
Totally, that's great. So your first role in wine was with did you join a company? Like what?
Yeah. So I've been doing wine for 15 years, and the first 8 years were in retail.
Okay.
So, but the first company that I was with for 3 years was both retail. It was hybrid, both retail and a wine bar.
Okay.
And so when I moved to New York in 2005, I was 34 years old. New York gave me an opportunity to start over, which is great. And and that's what I love about this city. You can still do that, I think, I hope. And so so I came in to work the retail store 20 to 25 hours a week. And then on Friday nights and Saturday nights, I worked in the wine bar. And we were the first, I think, Christy, this is right. I think we were the Vino in Tribeca at Franklin and West Broadway. We were the first hybrid store because in New York, you have to have 2 licenses to
right. You can't, it's not,
Correct. So we had an architect working with our SLA, State Liquor Authority attorney, to come up with a workaround, if you will. And we designed an architectural glass wall that divided the wine bar from the wine shop. And so, I would go to classes, do my work, and then work 25 hours in the shop. And ultimately, very quickly, I just became I was the point person and the owner who knew a little bit about wine. It was his second gig as well, or second life, or whatever you want to call it. He was just like, you really are a palate. Oh, I mean, and he really involved me in the
Right.
wine process. And it was really, really cool. But it was amazing because this was before 2008. There was a big difference, I think, in New York between pre-2008 and post-2008 and people that came in the wine world. And that's okay. I'm just saying that also I'm not someone that came into wine at the end of the 80s or the early 90s or anything like that. But coming in at 2005, I got a brief window into what that world looked like and who the gatekeepers were and how shit was really hard, much harder than it is now. Well, I think it's still difficult I think there's a lot of shit going on now, but we'll save that for later. But there are definitely people that post 2008, because of the crisis, that came into wine and skyrocketed within a year or two. It was not like that before. Like there was a lot of, you got to pay your dues and you apply for a job and you're qualified for it, but they tell you, oh no, you need 7 years of experience. And you're like, 7 years? How am I going to get 7 years? I'm 34 years old,
But cutting your teeth in New York in the business at a hybrid place right off the bat is so kind of special and unique. I mean, I think that if you've only had restaurant experience, you need to have the retail experience and vice versa. They're completely two different animals. So to go between the two of them right off the bat in New York City, gave you that experience, that like boost in experience off the bat, I would say.
Sure. We also had, I mean, if anybody remembers that space, or if you can just imagine, this is in Tribeca, it is just this beautiful space. And then you've got this architectural glass wall that you can see through. It was beautiful. None of this is no longer there, but people would come in and want to do events there. So I started the event business. So basically I wore all these hats. I also will tell you this, I designed the website too, which was in
amazing.
but that was back in the day where Flash was cool. So I wore all of these different hats and I loved it. That's just what I wanted to do,
Well, and so I have a bit of an opposite scenario. I started with events and was marketing wine, and really I wasn't very as good at doing it until I learned how to sell wine. And then I upped the game because I knew how to make it win-win for the venue, the brands, everyone involved, by knowing the selling elements, to then pipe that into the marketing and the events. So you doing the buying and the events and the marketing and the website, you have to wear all the hats to really raise the bar and get to the next level in this business.
And with an owner who eventually became absent, I mean, if any of you have worked for people and it looks like, well, I mean, when you become involved in everything because an owner becomes a little bit more absent or whatever, you can also see the financial situation going on. And so events became this space for the company to actually make an incredible profit. I'm both sad that owner became absent, but at the same time, I knew everything. I knew the cost of wine. I mean, this is before 750. Beverage was still like a phone book, so you had to fucking look shit up like that. So you had to know what your flow was. And
it allowed you to run a business without taking on the risk fully of running a business, and then you applied that to your future moves. So tell us then, was that an Italian focused place?
It was everything.
Okay.
So what I will say, the first 3 years doing that, it was after New York came back, when New York came back after when we talk about coming back. When New York came back after 9/11, and then the economy looked like it was skyrocketing for many reasons now that we know we're a little bit manufactured or propped up. There was just a lot of money to go around, and those were crazy times, I have to tell you, prior to 2008. And so it was a very boutique-y place. So small selections, boutique place. I will also tell you this. So have you ever walked into like a shop in New York or maybe other places now that have like a shipping card and notes on a shipping card? You know what I mean? Those little manila shipping cards with the little twine.
Okay.
And they're, okay, we started that, if you know me.
Yeah, it was very progressive.
We didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
But that became the tasting notes that were attached to the neck of the bottles. So it was a very boutique place, and we did things like very boutique-y, very hands-on, very artisanal, and we tried to align those values with like our aesthetics. After I left Vino Vino, the wine shop and the wine bar, I went to another place called Italian Wine Merchants. Italian Wine Merchants is one of the oldest retail shops in New York City that was established in the late 90s. And so as I was telling you this, like when I was approached to work at Italian Wine Merchants, I was approached to be their creative director, because the owner of Italian Wine Merchants, I'm going to throw up some names right now. So the owner of Italian Wine Merchants were three dudes, right? So Mario Batali, Joe Bastianich, and this guy named Sergio Esposito. And Sergio Esposito had some investors, and they bought out the two chefs, Batali and Bastianich. So they needed new identity, new branding, new everything, right? So I was hired to come in and do that. I'm just going to say here, Christy Canterbury and I worked together at Italian Wine Merchants.
Oh, yeah? I had no idea. I actually used to live on 17th Street, right by Casamono Bar Hamon. Yeah, and of course I passed it all the time. I went in, and I didn't know that it was ever touched by Batali and Bastianich. So learn something new every day.
Yeah. So so after I was there for 2 years, after that I went to a shop called 67 Wine and Spirits on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where I was the director of marketing and Italian and Italian white wine buyer, sherry, all fortified. So I did sherry, I did port, I did Madeira. Some of my favorite things I got to do. And so I was there for 2.5 years. So first 8 years retail, and then I transitioned to the supply side, and I worked for Winebow, and I was a brand manager for Italian wines and Austrian wines. I did that for 4 years, and I left in the summer of 2016. So we're looking at 4 years. And so since then I've been on my own, like consulting clients, etc. And which brings us to Bolé, who's one of my clients.
Yes. So we'll get into that in a moment, but tell us how you kind of shifted your focus to what was it Italian wine merchants that really made you fall in love with Italy, Italian wines, Italian culture, Italian everything?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. So basically, so I've been going to Italy for a while now, almost 30 years. And it wasn't necessarily at the beginning because of wine, it was studies for art history. So anyway, so fast forward to wine. When I get in the wine industry, I really loved French wine. I really loved the Loire Valley. So back in 05, 06, 07, I mean, Loire Valley was like all the rage back. I mean, it still is, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, you know, it was just so like, you get a bottle of Muscadet for like, you could get La Papier for like $9, you know what I mean? And just have like a lot of fun with that. And I felt Italian wines, especially red wines, were really too big for me and too like I just couldn't deal with it. So one day, a sales rep came in and he blinded me on a white wine, and I tasted it and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And so it turned out to be a Greco, a 2006 Greco. Christina's sister. It turned out to be a 2006 Greco de Tufo from Pietracupa, and I was just like blown away.
Blown away.
I was blown away. And then it just turned out that the more I started to do research, I realized that it seemed like Italian white wines were maligned. And don't get me wrong, look, at the end of the day, Pinot Grigio has its place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think Prosecco has its place, but back then, and still to today, Pinot Grigio has its place. Sometimes you have to get people excited about something, right? To then really know what a country can do and to explore more. And I've always done that with Italian white wines. And I had that. So fast forward, I had that opportunity to do that at 67 Wine and Spirits. I got really fortunate. Letty Teague wrote a piece about what I was doing at 67 Wines. So I had like 75 I had 75 placements on shelves available for Italian white wine. 75 for white wine.
That's amazing.
So a third of that was Pinot Grigio. And so I used Pinot Grigio to really subsidize the eclectic side of Italian white wine. So it got people really excited.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
That's where it's, so basically I was wrong about my bias. I had a bias, I was wrong, and someone proved me wrong, and that's what happened.
That's really cool. Everyone knows I'm a champagne and sparkling wine girl, but I drink Italian white all day long when I'm not drinking sparkling wine and champagne. Nice. So we're going a little bit outside of the, sometimes Spanish, because, like I said, I did live by Bar Jamon, but I'm a big Italian wine drinker. And down here, I'm quarantining down in Hilton Head, and I've been doing lots of Sicilian whites and just really enjoying, those wines by the pool. But we're going a little out of order, not that we have an order, but on that note, can you talk a bit about your book that you have coming out hopefully in the next year or two?
So I started researching, I'd already been researching, but I started officially researching in 2016 and 17. I pitched the book idea in 18, and I got a deal, and I had 5 years to produce. So the book was supposed to come out this year, but it's coming out now, actually next year.
And what's the title of the book again?
Unless it's changed. Unless it's changed. Right now,
what's the working title?
The title is called Bianchista Forever, Drinking and Appreciating Italy's White Wines.
Cannot wait for this book.
Yeah,
ASAP.
Thanks for saying that. I know it's a labor of love, and the book is finished.
Yeah.
And I don't even sometimes I don't even want to think about it, because I just feel like it's never going to be perfect. Like it's never,
Right. Yeah.
But it's also a book that won't ever expire. So the way it's written, there are 10 chapters at the beginning, charting history, charting different styles. So let's say 1/3 of the book are like my words in terms of the history and background and reference points, and the other 2/3 of the book list wines based on style, not on region, because that's how I think that Italian white wine. I'm just going to talk about Italian white wines right now, okay?
Yeah, no, that's
how I think Italian white wine should be perceived, because I think Italian white wines are super accessible, and they're as compared to Italian reds, they can really be taken out of context. Like you don't have to be like, well, do I make clams with this? What kind of pasta? You don't have to do any of that. You can, but you don't have to. So which is also great
Well,
about the Bolé wines because, and we'll talk about that, I know, but
yeah, yeah. We're just going all, I don't have a rhyme or reason to these, and
no, it's okay. No, no, no,
yeah,
no,
so
no, no.
we're good. Well, I'm really excited about your book, and
Thank you for
I think that, yeah, of course. And I think at a certain point, when you have 5 years to write it, which is incredible, you
a
just got to
little bit of
be,
money, tiny bit of money, but it's okay.
yeah. But you gotta be, just, how it is in business. You just gotta go. You just have to be like, it's ready, it's done, I'm good to go.
For sure. For sure.
Right? So cheers to that.
Thank
Cheers to sometimes just jumping. But so let's talk about Bolé. Well, first of all, if you know me, I'm a branding fanatic, and look at these labels. So when I first got to check them out, it was at Trey Carey in New York in, when was that, end of February always. And you had not only these incredible bottles, but you have a whole setup. I mean, the branding, the marketing's on point. You're into marketing, you're a marketing expert, right? So tell us about your alignment with the brand and when it launched and its backstory and the female involvement. Just tell us everything.
For
Go.
sure. Yeah, no, for sure. No, absolutely. There's someone on this call too. You may see Nikki. So Nicole here is from
Yes.
Italy. So I am glad that she's here. It's
Oh,
really
thank you for
early.
staying up late. Thank you for staying up late on a holiday, no less. It is a holiday in Romania, right? So
yeah. So I will tell you that Nikki and I have known each other for several years. This is a team effort. It's an all-female team. These wines launched a couple of years ago, and I've just come on officially in January. But everything you see on the branding and the colors and the blues, the pinks, the corals, all of that is connected to the colors and the region and the vibrancy of Romagna, which we always think of Emilia Romagna, and that is the region. Romagna is east of Bologna, so it's more of a maritime culture. But they're also the Apennine Mountains, so you also have this dramatic sense of like these 9 hills. But credit where credit is due. All of the branding, all of that packaging that you see, and then I hope that all of you get to see in the future, because we're still working on importation, is because of Nikki and the female-led team there that did incredible research in the region. I'm just going to highlight something right now. So this is a great book. And I hope that when I get back to Italy, I can get a few more copies so I can give them to people. But what's really great about this book is that it really describes the history of sparkling wine in Romagna. It describes the branding process and what that was all about, and the research. I mean, like, they did research for months to produce what you see right now, you know, labels. If you look at the labels, and I'm sorry not everyone has it, I know that I have the label.
I'm happy to show them again. Look at these babies.
Christy has the bottle. So if you see this, this looks like a 1X, like for 9, right? And then you have Nove Bolé. So this font, if you will, this typeface, and this pictogram, these come from the 19th century. Well, it's harkening back to the 19th century, where sparkling wine was being produced in Romagna. And so the team did all of that research, and then the Nove Bolé letterpress, so back in the day, in the early 20th century, in the 1920s, this is Art Nouveau, and you get, this is all coming out from this Nove Bolé that you see, and it looks like a really cool typeface. It's actually coming from an original letterpress
Wow.
that was used. So Nove means 9, and that's why the 1X is there. So it means 9, obviously, in Latin, and so, but Nove is also like, it also means new, and Bolé is bubbles, right? So new bubbles. So this is a hearkening back to over 100 years of history of sparkling wine in Romagna. So, and I'll just show you this.
And merging that with this modern, forward thinking,
a contemporary
approach.
kind of
Yes.
feel. So, and that's what I wanted to bring in. And I'm sorry, this is backwards. I didn't flip that around. Sorry. But like, life is an adventure to explore, and attitude, Bolé. So this is, we collaborate with artists for for instance, to like work on these letterpresses. So we do that every year to collaborate with artists. So, and then like this one, Boloncine, bubbles, like sparkling,
Yes.
Bolé, Romagnole. So from Romagna, right?
Right. So the range is part of a new DOC.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And it started, and it started with Bolé. So they're
right. So that's
on board to make them. And so we kind of kicked it off, and we have the Brut normal. We have the Rosé extra Brut.
Rosé, which I have here. And what is the dosage in the Rosé extra Brut?
Yeah. So it's 5.5 to 6 grams per liter on the extra Brut. It's 11.5 alcohol. The grape is Sangiovese di Romagna. And it's in tank method for 90 days. Tank method, Marmont, Martinati, it's all the same, right? So, yeah.
So there's 2 in the range to start.
There will be a third.
Okay.
And the third is still like a sleeping baby, if you will, which is a Metodo Classico. So the first 2, which is the Brut Spumante and the Extra Brut Spumante Rosé, those are Spumantes. And so when you talk about like Frizzante, Spumante, Metodo Classico, so basically it's just a difference with the atmospheres of pressure, right? So Frizzante is about 1.5. As of 2012, Spumante in Italy can actually, so prior to 2012, I should say, Spumante had to be 3.5 atmosphere pressure, the bubble pressure, right? So the persistence of that. But since 2012, Spumante labeling can also go up to 5 or 6 atmospheres of pressure, which is the Metodo Classico or champagne method, if you will. Persistence. So under pressure. So the 2 that we have right now that are Spumante are about 3.5 to 4.
Okay.
And so next year we will release the Metodo Classico. But I'm going to keep that secret right now.
Okay. Well, only the people on this chat privy to this information.
Everybody, where's the NDA? Do we need to sign
NDA. Yeah. So Becky's asking, is it available in the US? Not quite yet, but
we're working on it. Basically it should have been here. Let me tell you that. Right. And it's just because of what has happened.
Well, wasn't the first US reveal at Trebekeri? Or was it a bit before that?
It was. Yeah. It was in Chicago, San Francisco, and in New York.
And then all this happened like 2 weeks later.
Traveling. I still can't. Yeah. So we were on that path, and then now, unfortunately, I think we'll get back to it. So
no, for sure.
Personal, but importers, I think, need to really start looking at some money and looking at diversifying their portfolio, because otherwise it's just going to become a loop and people buying the same thing over and over. And then I think what will eventually happen, because of my years in retail, I'm just going to get tired as a buyer in retail of not having a choice. And I'm going to go to another book and I'm going to order something from another book. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, no, absolutely. Totally makes sense to me. So in terms of the rollouts, I'm going to use our favorite word. No, I'm not. Melissa and I both hate the P word, pivot. We do not like to use it. So we're going to use segue. How have you segued the rollout plans in the current climate with mainly COVID? I know you had grand plans. So how have you segued the plans to do the rollout since everything went down?
So we are still talking to people, and
Right.
it is very possible that instead of going with someone who is, instead of thinking, okay, well, I really want to go with someone that's really cool and has somewhat of a national presence, maybe I'm going to go with someone who has a little bit of a smaller presence, and they come in and they take a pallet or two, even a pallet, and we just roll it out, and we deplete, and we do events, and we just do it that way. Also partnering, like if I can get this wine in, then I know that I can partner with other people, like, we've talked about,
Right. Yes.
do particular boutique curation of bubbly wines that are subscription based. Right?
Totally. And my stance on this, and we, like you said, we have talked about it. I like smaller is better, and you're such a force in the business, and you have such a vision behind this brand that it will allow you to really roll it out in the style and the vein and that you want to. And I just think that would be amazing to see. So many of these importers, there are female-owned importing companies that are focusing on female-led wines and female-made wines, and I love that angle, and I feel like that would be a great thing to see for this brand. So going back to the female angle, can you tell us more about the females behind this brand, who they are, how they came together to start Bolé?
Sure. So Nikki's one, and Nikki's here, and if we want to unmute her, we could always do that too. If you want to,
if she's down.
But
raise your hand, Nikki, if you want to pipe in at any moment. I'd be happy to unmute you.
So Nikki, Nicole, has so everybody lives in in Romagna, in an area called Cesena, and so it's very close to the water. It's really beautiful there. Again, you have the water, and then you've got like the Apennini, right? The mountains. It's really incredible, and everything is just different on that side from the grapes. I mean, we think of Lambrusco and we think of Malvasia, but like when you get to like the Romagna side, so east of Bologna, it just becomes completely different, the cuisine, and typical Italian story where it's just so unique and so original, and so everyone is from this area.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikki is a really great brand creative.
Mm-hmm.
And she cut her teeth. I don't know what her first job was, but I definitely know she worked in London for Berry Brothers and Red, I believe. Oh my God, Nikki, if you didn't, I think that's where she worked. And so she was there.
Save us, Nikki.
She was there for a while. And then she came back to Italy, and she became a brand manager for different brands and in Italy, and traveled all over the world, especially, in English speaking places like the UK, Canada, the United States. We got to know each other via Instagram, probably in 2012 or 11. And it was just that we kind of like, it was just like, we just vibed. Like, it was just that, right? And so we finally first met each other in person at Provine in maybe 2015. And it was just like, we're going to work together one day. And then in November of 2018, I was on a trip to write a story about co-ops.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at this co-op if you will, tasting of all the co-ops. It was just like, it's like a fair, but it's co-op wine, which is cool. Co-ops, they work. And so anyway, so I'm walking around and I see this table and there's this one wine and it's beautiful. They've got posters. They've got like shit going on. Like people are happy. And I'm like, what, who are these people? So like I walk up and I'm like, oh, drinking the wine and it's just like gorgeous. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Who makes this? And
the wine is good.
of course. Yeah. We'll get into that. Yeah, of course. Good. Yeah. So I just kept on asking so many questions, and then my Italian was limited. You know, I just like I was asking too many questions. So they were like, "Hey, so we're gonna get our friend over here to talk to you." And so they bring over Nikki, and I'm like, "What the hell are you doing here?" So it turned into this like we just couldn't believe it. And she was like, "This is the project I'm doing." I'm like, "Oh, you're doing this?" And anyway, so that's it. And so they'd been working on Bolé. They'd been working with artists. They had been doing the hard research in the archives. Nikki's also written a book about Romagna, which is beautiful. So Nikki's just, and the team, in the brand shop, everyone is just very stylish, very into who the clients are. And that said, when you are working with clients, I mean, sometimes people want to work with you and you're like, yeah, I can't work with you. So like that happens too. So it's a nice boutique agency that has a name, and it will launch soon, but I'm not going to reveal that either because it's coming, but everything's been slowed down, you know, in the past.
Of course, yeah.
So the whole idea was that these two co-ops, the two largest co-ops in Italy that produce about 60% of Italian wine, came together, and they're competitors, but they came together out of collaboration and cooperation to really put Romagna wine on the map, especially for this DOC. So they came together, they share the burden. We only work with small growers, like pretty much nobody has more than 2 hectares, or 4 acres. And so, of the grapes, so we work with 3 grapes right now, right? We work with, for the Brut, we work with Trebbiano di Romagna, we work with Famoso, and we work with Sangiovese di Romagna. So these are all native grapes to this region. And they all are historically tied to, obviously, the region and tied to sparkling wine production that's existed for over 100 years. And so because of Nikki and because of her relationships, they reached out to her and they reached out to the team, and it just turned into an all female-led project because that's just the way it is.
Well, we need to take this to Vin Italy because I'm going to be doing Fizz Female at Vin Italy in 2021. So we'll have to get Bolé at least 1 or 2 representatives on the panel for that event for sure. Someone said, I love the branding, the story, and the philosophy. Can't wait to try it. So we can't wait for you to try it either. Is there anywhere that people can sign up for updates on the rollout? Is there a newsletter? Is there anything, or people follow you on, of course, follow you on Instagram is a great way to stay tuned.
Yeah, for sure. Instagram is probably the best way, you know, for an immediate thing. I'm extremely online. So for sure. I mean, but also I know that, Blaine, you record everything, and
I do.
And I know that when you post things, you also post links. And so I will do that, and I will actually even provide my email. So I'm cool with that.
Yes. If you want to type your email.
You'll allow that on your site.
Of course, absolutely. And you can also type your email in the chat here. Yeah. But anyone who follows the Fizz Female we'll be in touch. So I'll be updating Bolé's progress on getting into the markets, availability, and everything on Fizz is Female on a continual basis, because I'm definitely supportive, and hopefully I can help. Hopefully we can share this and blast this out and get some people behind the brands. Yeah, perfect. So
thank you.
So I know that Italy is like a second home to you. So
yeah.
How have you been navigating not being there? Like, you would usually be there for a few months.
How's everyone? I know it's a second home for Diane. I know I'm here, and Christy. Christy is definitely, this is one of her, I know, passions and specialties as well. It's just it just sucks. What can I say? Like, it just sucks. It just sucks. Not, and it also sucks now because we haven't handled this right, and now we can't go because like Europe is blocking us. So it's just a little tricky. Yeah.
Right. So then what are your, like, besides working on Bolé and your book, and cooking, because you're an amazing cook, just from what I see.
I know. I wish I could have you over.
I know. We're going to be two ships passing in the wind by the time I'm back to New York. But what else have you been working on? I mean, I know you're very big into politics still. Are you're kind of going a little bit back to your politics roots? And,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Political roots. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Like, I mean, I think, what's really interesting about working on projects, I'm gonna, so there's some, I wanted to read you something because,
okay.
I wanted to read y'all something. This is something that I have recently, framed in terms of like what I do. And, because really a lot of my experiences with branding, and I think that talking about like what I do and what we can do, and for whatever, for whatever those purposes are in terms of inspiration or moving forward piece by piece, I this is something now that I write to clients. And so I wrote, brands are methods to create unique customer value, best developed as strategic applications to advance both customers and company. And, that's the way I see brands. That's the way I see what I do. I think of customers first.